all summer,
It's
that
across
was
the
a couple
street.
years ago.
It's the inn at the canyons. Is where you're
That's
staying.
the same place where we stayed last time.
Yeah, so it'll be where you
Must have
stayed
been
last
at
time.
night or something.
Thank
Yep.
Either that or I
So
just
keep
drove
that with you
outside.
when you
Yeah.
check in, okay?
you. All right.
Okay.
The rest are with them.
I'm just gonna drive back and forth, but that day, if I don't feel up driving home, I might stay a night.
Yeah, let me
See what
know.
happens, yeah.
Let me know and we'll get one reserved
I'll
for
let you see by the floor.
Sleep on the floor, Dirk.
I guess it's just us here, huh? Commissioner Adams, he's somewhere around here. His coat's here and his drink's here.
Do they all have a copy of this too? Or just you?
Just me. That's just a signed one.
Governor, det only he contact the lieutenant i det,
Uh-huh.
men de ilalia.
Coffee the meeting?
Probably. It's congestion. You feel it like right here.
Yeah.
And like last night. It's so annoying.
It's enough to bother you, but not enough to stay.
I thought he did last time.
Doesn't hurt at all.
Really?
Just
He said you caught
I
last
get
time,
it.
last meeting.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I forget what they changed. That must be that line 5.
He
You
did?
said-
Okay, well.
What?
Somebody, I was next, but
You said change.
now those songs, you didn't need me. No, it's just, oh yeah, the shots and some,
That's even better.
get on the agenda to do
It's
the
okay.
report.
What?
Oh, just anything of what's happening, what's going on, and just a regular chapter report.
Yeah. We're having a plan meeting Sunday.
San Diego.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get that down.
We had 3 people left the community
Anything, not even gross negligence.
permanently.
Uh-huh.
Huh?
Why not?
Kid, I
Isn't
think.
that kinda scary?
Yeah.
If they wreck up the road, who cares?
I care.
No,
Yeah,
it's your road.
exactly.
What are they mining over here in Lisbon?
No, gross negligence is.
I'm not
is
sure.
if somebody gets hurt.
Is it the
because
copper
they're
mine?
moving the
Yeah.
road.
You remember the copper
This-
ran out, so a couple of people started the potash thing,
Hey,
did
good
they?
morning.
and I don't know what they're mining for now.
I don't know.
The copper? So the copper mine extending the boundary.
How are you?
So
What time? Let's start the planning meeting.
as they
Okay.
open up that mine again, it's extending the
One
acreage
of us.
on there. So
Hey,
that's
sir.
what that is. So
Morning.
it's an open house. You can come and look at the areas that they're going to be opening and extending the mine. And so this is to get more of the copper.
Mm. It'll be
So they found more copper, huh?
That's what they're.
rough rock
That's what
on
that
the
they're
same
trying to.
day. Then the evening I'll be page for
Oh, okay.
that dig deep project.
I have to do this.
Getting together for the holiday.
Okay. Okay. I'll be there. I'll go to this.
Yeah.
So I can come back and
Sounds
report to
good.
you. Get you the information.
Well, it's
Yeah, we talked to President Nez yesterday, and INDOT. They said in January that IGR is going to
You sign?
we sign.
Cool.
Did we have a
It-
final version, Chad?
It's that
So-
they finalize it.
All we're waiting on is the map of the roads. And so the document's pretty much done, unless they have changes to it, and so I've sent it to their Attorney General. It's been with Kendall. So we're not holding it up.
Yes, what I
on our
told
side.
them.
Yeah, so we're ready to go.
San Juan County is ready to go. but
Yeah, yeah,
You guys are jerking your tail.
yeah. Commissioner Adams, he has a suntan from.
I tried to stay out of the sun.
Well, fellows, it is past 9, so let's get on with our work meeting. The first item would be letter to support the American Indian. Wow.
American
Okay.
Indian.
Who is the Matt?
Yeah.
Go ahead and fill us in on that.
Okay, so what this is back in 2002, Congress passed the Help American Voting Act. This act acknowledges unique obstacles that people are faced with disabilities at the polls, election polls, and authorizes funding through the Protection and Advocacy for Voting Access Program. What this program does, it advocates for voters with disabilities to have access to aspects of the American voting process. And so Congress, they will allocate a portion of funds to this to help Native Americans access the polling locations, things like this. By law, federal mandate, we have to have ADA access to our polling locations anyway, which we do. We make sure that we have that. But with this, there's also funding that comes available to agencies that are willing to assist those voters, and especially in the southern portion of the county, which this would affect. There's 57 protection and advocacy agencies out there in all 50 states throughout. But only 55 of those agencies are able to access the funds because of the language that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been asked by the National Disabilities Right Network to just formulate a letter of support for them as they go back to Congress and try to change some of the language in the law to allow other agencies to access that fund as well, so that they can carry the funds a little bit further instead of just the 55 out of the 57. And so all this is just kind of for your knowledge. If it's something that you'd like us to draft a letter of support of, anytime that you can go above and beyond offering assistance to those people that are disabled to take place in elections is something that I definitely encourage. That's all they're asking for is that letter of support. And so if you'd like, we'll draft a letter of support on behalf of the commission and send it to them so that they know that with the Native Americans that are here within San Juan County, we definitely would support their action on this to help us.
Sounds like a great idea.
And so we'll get working on that letter of support so that you have that and send down to them.
Okay.
And then the next item on the agenda looks like an ordinance granting the Emory Telecommunications and Video Incorporated and its successors and assigns a franchise for communication systems. This is primarily to start that communications line out to the LaSalle Mountains, that area that was
Mhm.
already approved and funded. Now they just need that franchise agreement to start going ahead. And so this authorized them that franchise agreement. I like the document itself because it doesn't prohibit any other company coming in and getting a franchise agreement. So this is with Emory County, Emory Telecommunications and Video Incorporated, but it also allows us in the future that we can also contract with other companies out there for rights to their system or that right of way and the easements thereon. So that's kind of what this agreement is. And so this is finalizing everything so that they can go forward with laying that line that's been funded. Any questions with that? And it is an ordinance.
Maybe a little bit more background
On Emory,
there?
Emory Telecommunications is they're your main provider that comes in with the communication system. They're in partner with the Utah Education Network, so
Utah
UEN.
Education Network.
So they're tied in with them to make sure that they bring in that telecommunication system, internet, broadband into these areas. And so this is the internet broadband system that'll be put into LaSalle. And then you'll see similar documents like this coming forward as they go further to the south.
That's a UEN channel, huh?
This helps that whole network.
UEN is charged by law to provide internet and broadband to the schools throughout the state.
Yep.
They send out an RFP and ask for companies that could help do that, help install that broadband, and Emory Telecom was the company that was selected by UEN to do that work. And so it went through a public process to end up in the hands of Emory Telecom. It wasn't an arbitrary process that happened. It was the same process that the county would have gone through
Yeah.
to get this, but UEN has that mandate to get it to the schools, which opens up the possibility to extend from those trunk lines to other places, chapter houses, city offices, things like that. That's how it all came to pass.
Yeah. Thanks. So that's, to me, it's something, this is a very good thing, obviously, to get it in there. It gets internet services further out throughout our county. And you'll see these coming to fruition as, that next phase heading south was approved, and then they're working on the funding for that additional phase to take it further south. So that connectivity throughout our county is critical. It's critical infrastructure nowadays. It gets the schools off of the microwave system and puts that broadband out there. And kind of like Commissioner Adams spoke to, is it also connects those communities, those houses and everything. It allows them that ability to connect to those systems in the future. So this is kind of the underlayment to that infrastructure for your broadband. And kind of like I mentioned, it doesn't prohibit any other company to come in. A lot of times when you look at these franchise agreements, they're pretty restrictive on competitors coming in against them, or adjacent to their lines. That has no language in here. It's pretty much allows for other franchisees to come in and use rights of way as well, and it doesn't prohibit the county from contracting with them for franchise agreements as well. And so this gets the system in there.
Well, try to draft something up then.
Does the county have to okay another franchise to come in to use those trunk lines to go to compete with Emory Telecom then?
So my understanding is this is their system. It'll be their systems. We are granting them a right of way. If another company wants to come in and use that same right of way, they can. They'd come in and put their system in. I don't know.
Would they have to lay new cable and everything?
Their own system.
They couldn't use Emery's cable to go out,
In
right?
here, with this one here, that would probably be an agreement with that other company and Emery, not with the county. This is
Right.
exclusive just for our access to the right of ways themselves, and so this doesn't give us the ability to allow other companies to go on to Emery's system. This just
Yeah.
allows Emery to
Hmm.
use our rights of way throughout the county.
Competition is
Competition.
probably good.
Absolutely, especially in
You
this
know,
industry.
to give somebody just a blanket exclusive. But you gotta protect their interest. They are bringing in the trunk line.
They are bringing it in,
So-
absolutely, yeah. Yep.
And they're on the action item 2 on number 5, huh?
Yeah, so you'll see this in the commission meeting for your approval, and so at least wanted to address it in this work meeting, and then later on in today's agenda, you'll see that come up again, so
Mhm.
you can get your final approval, so that they can get underway, start burying the line. In here, they'll also work with Benny and our roads crew, our road department. They'll take care of any obstructions as they're out there doing construction. They're obviously have this portion in here of restoration, but they'll be working with us on those lines. And so
Okay. Any question, Willie?
No.
Next item, number 3. The intergovernmental agreement, Benny?
This intergovernmental agreement is between San Juan County and of Utah and Dolores County of Colorado. We have 11.4 miles of road out on Cedar Point area that we essentially have to go into Dove Creek and then back out the county roads to get to that. It's kind of an island in itself. There is a connector through the canyon, but we don't remove snow through that. So this agreement is for snow removal, directs them as to what roads we can and will reimburse them for their efforts in that snow removal. This has been back and forth between San Juan County's attorney, Dolores County's attorney, and Utah County Indemnity Pool, and we're comfortable with where we're at. There may be some small tweaks that we'll have to do later to get all of the language that they've discussed into it, but as a good platform right now, we're good with that. So this is just for snow removal, and that's it. We do the summertime maintenance on all of those roads. It's just the winter maintenance that it's much quicker. They're already there blading in their roads, and they just come on over and do the additional 11 miles.
Walter and Kendall have already reviewed it, right?
Walter doesn't need to, it's just me that does.
You should be the first one to make a point to that. Good. Any question?
This is nothing new. This is not a new
No.
program.
Mhm.
We have been working with Dolores County for a long time on
Mhm.
doing this. They got a new attorney, elected a new attorney, and that attorney wasn't comfortable that we had an agreement that indemnified Dolores County, tell me if I'm wrong here, that indemnified them against any liability that might happen because of them working on one of our roads to remove snow. So that attorney wanted a new agreement, which probably included more language in it than we'd had in the past. And so it's been a process to get this agreement in place and still not jeopardize the county from a legal standpoint. That's why they had our liability company look at it and make sure there wasn't any language in there that would liable us. And then also Kendall needed to review it, their attorney, and so there's been a few copies go back and forth, and it's been in process for probably a couple of months, I think, right, Benny?
Yeah.
But we're getting down to the point where we finally starting to get a little moisture.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody lives out in that area is getting a little uptight and concerned about whether they're gonna have snow removed out there and who's gonna do it and all of those kind of things. I've been getting a number of phone calls from residents and from Dolores County Commissioners wanting to make sure that we have an agreement in place. And so that's what he's bringing to us today,
Perfect, yeah.
is a
that's-
new agreement
Mhm.
that,
A recurrent,
that allows the county to pay them for snow removal out in that area. And it's cost effective for us to pay them rather than take our equipment out there and do the snow removal. It's better for us just to pay them to do it. And so I'm fully supportive of what Benny's doing here, and I think it
Well,
And not,
I do appreciate the enlightenment. I think, as you know, that I'm one individual that cannot stand not signing the IGA, so I'm just asking, since Bruce alluded to some of the review of the attorneys and our attorney, which was good, and that's the reason why I asked if the two attorneys have reviewed it, which is good. And this is a recurrence. I know that when I was here, we passed one too, so good.
okay. Yeah, not only is it make
Question.
sense for,
Go ahead.
The cost, how much are we reimbursing them?
It's an hourly amount based on what type of equipment they use, and so it depends. If we have a year where we get 20 foot of snow on those roads, we're going to pay them more than if we have a really, really dry winter and we don't pay them. So it just depends on how much time they put in and with what type of equipment. And the last page of the agreement actually sets forth the price per piece of equipment, depending on per hour, depending on what they do.
Go through those rates there, Benny. That'll probably-
the greater rate,
Continue the question. So that's included in your budget,
yes.
okay?
The greater rates are $200 an hour. Loader rate is $125 an hour. The pickup is $75. The D8 dozer is $200. Their truck with lowboy $150, and administration fees of $30 an hour. Typically, this work is done with a grader. We've never paid any of the other charges. They're just there in the event that we had to. Last year, with this rate structure and the heavy snow and the wind we had, we did end up paying close to $30,000 to Dolores County for last year's services under very similar agreement. Just we just made some
Yeah,
legal
yeah.
tweaks.
we have another agreement with Grand County that's
Yes.
similar to this.
Yeah, it's structured the same way.
And that is for snow removal on the LaSalle Loop Road, is that,
LaSalle Loop and the Spanish Valley residential areas.
yeah.
Good. Is that on one of the action items we have
Yes.
today?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Benny. Okay, dishwasher purchase. Any information on that, Mac?
Monty's, I don't have any information on the public safety building. Looks like they're trying to purchase a dishwasher. I don't know. I don't have all the details on here. This came to Natalie, and so we'll follow up with this. Find out more information.
Is money not available today?
He must not be. Same with last meeting. He's got. Let's see. Today on the agenda, he's got that at here, agenda item number 3 as well. So maybe he'll come in and address it.
Is he aware that he was supposed to be on, that he's on
He
the agenda?
was. So we'll reach out to him, make sure he's coming to the meeting.
So that's gonna be a pass item to where we don't, if he's here, we'll get back to it. In the real world, we'll just skip that person and never go back to it until the next meeting. So, what about Spanish Valley update, Jerry? Is Jerry McNeely here? You're up next, sir. You've been texting me that you wanted to be the first one on the agenda.
Back. Willie, always a pleasure, guys. Coming from the north end up here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have no snow. I see you guys got a little snow.
Well, I showed you the dance over and over. You just don't get it.
You got rain?
I
If
don't
you
want,
don't have snow
that-
doesn't mean you didn't have moisture.
that's one, yeah, we got a lot of rain. We did do that. Messed up Benny's road stuff, but well, we'll make it through it somehow or another. Okay, guys, we'll start with the meetings attended. And just go through them. If there was anything bad happened, I'd bring it up. But I attended Grand Water and Sewer, which I always attend that because I'm on the board member there, and everything's going good there. And you know, we're kind of in cahoots with them now, so that's working out good. And we had a San Juan Water and Sewer, and that went well. Had a self-help home meeting. That's going. Benny and I both attended a water meeting, a state board water meeting with Mark Stilson, it was mostly on the west end of the valley, so it didn't affect us that much. The next meeting will be on our end, discussing over the big study they had. And so we didn't get really much information out of that other than being present and getting our name on there, and then Benny signed up for some of the other boards they have there too, so that he hadn't been signed up for. So we did go to that, and I got to do some talking with Mark Stilson on some other stuff that needed to be talked about. That's about all the meetings. I did go to a planning and zoning meeting up here in Monticello one night, which I don't know how many times I'll do that. I didn't get home till 12 o'clock, so I'm too old for that, I think. So we're playing that.
How did that go?
Went good. It was a good meeting. In fact, it was a really good meeting, I thought. Sitla, they're still doing their easement stuff with us, working on our road easements, paperwork on them. I don't know if Benny's got it back yet, so we can continue on our roads and stuff the 2 new roads we're putting in that go out to the Loop Road or Spanish Valley Trail Road. They go out there. Now, the big meeting we went to is, as you know, we didn't make it to the commissioner meeting because Benny and I and Clark went with the Forest Service on a big meeting over Geyser Pass Road, which they have got some funding and they want to change it a lot. First thing, they want to make it 20 feet wide all the way to the top of Geyser Pass. So that's in the works, and this
How
was
wide is it now?
between 14. What is Bendy still here?
14 to spots are 20 now.
What really causes it? Well, we'll start with the beginning. They put a car counter on Geyser Pass Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then within 3 months, which has to start after June sometime, because you couldn't even get over Geyser up till the end of June last year, they counted with the car counters, and then 3 months from then on, they counted 20,000 cars that went over the top of Geyser, which is unbelievable until you see their facts, But they got 20,000 cars going over Geyser, which is a mountain road, but it's turning into a real recreational area. And now we're getting ready for winter, so it's going to be even more so than it was. But right now, from what Benny and I saw, for hiking and biking and all that, the Geyser Pass is the main loop that they branch off of. So it's getting a lot of traffic and a lot of vendors working there. I can't see where we're gaining that much other than maintaining the road everybody else seems to do pretty good. There's no vendors coming out of Monticello that I know of. But we had, what, 3 vendors with us, Ben?
Yes.
That was there, bikers and
Shuttle
hikers,
companies.
and they needed room to park their vans and all that stuff. So that's what this is all about. Okay, at the lower end, they're putting in a new parking lot, which with Benny's and Clark's expertise, they decided to move the road northwest and then turn the road where it is now into the parking area. So Benny and them helped them a lot right there because they were just gonna fiddly-dee it around. And then also at that parking area, it's gonna be mostly for, in the wintertime, it'd be mostly for your snowmobiles and that kind of stuff, because the bigger area stuff will have to stay at the top, because they have another one up about the middle that they're gonna be working on. It has bathrooms. They're also gonna put bathrooms in this new one, because we said if you're gonna have parking, you gotta have a bathroom. That's all there is to it. So we're looking at putting a bathroom there, and then they're gonna put, and then we went up to the next one, and it'll all be 20 feet all the way up, and then the middle one is the recreation one they use right now. It already has bathrooms. They're gonna make that bigger because there's no parking, not enough parking for the citizens that show up there, which a lot of them are our San Juan stuff. So, and this is our road, and so we're very concerned about this. And then at the top, there was not enough room to park, and evidently the vendors bring their people up there, and then they park their cars in this big circle kind of a thing, and there is a bathroom there. But when they park their cars, there's no room for the cars to go down traffic, through traffic, and park and everything. So it's turned out to be a big mess. But no one realized that was the amount of cars going over and being used, that Geyser Pass is being used that much till they put the car counter. So that's where this all comes from, and so that's the start. And we've been fighting recreational use on Geyser Pass now for a long time, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The only questions that we had, which we told them was not a good idea, was they wanted to put a gate on the middle parking lot road so they could shut it off when they wanted to. We told them that maybe they could put a gate there, but they would not to put a date on it or consider a date. Don't shut it until they groom the trails, like have 2 or 3 foot of snow. Because not last year, but the year before, they closed it off, and then the Hollyoaks, who have a bunch of cabins up there, could still get into their cabins, and so we ran into I got a lot of phone calls. We got into a lot of problems, and so if they close the gate too early, we're going to have that over again. So we got to work with that, and I'll be working with the Forest Service on that as we proceed on. And in fact, some of the Hollyoaks come by at that particular time. Of course, they're not happy with the Forest Service anyway. So I heard from them. They didn't talk to Benny and them guys, but I talked to them for a while, and they've been out herding cows.
Does that mean that we're gonna have to maintain that road through the whole?
We maintain it up to, well, actually, Grand County maintains it for us right now. It's one of those deals you just talked about, a contract because we can't get a road grader there fast enough. And so what they do have a gate down at the bottom of it where you come off of the loop road. And when the snow gets where it needs plowed, but yet you can't get to it, they shut the gate until we can plow it. Then they leave the gate shut till it's all plowed, because what happens is the grader goes up there plowing the roads, and then here comes the cars, and they can't plow it. So they do have a gate down at the bottom also, and that is our jurisdiction. But because we can't get there soon enough, tell me if I'm wrong, Ben. We have Grand County does that for us and then when it gets great big and a lot of snow, then Forest Service will bring some of their equipment in, and then they got the big equipment that blows it out over the edges. Because what happens, the snow keeps building up, and then there's no parking and no cars can park there.
How many other roads do we maintain up there?
Just that one.
That agreement is paid for by the Forest Service Recreation for that. It's we allow them on our road, but because it's for recreation, Forest Service brings the money that pays Grand County for the maintenance of that road.
Good.
Right.
Jerry, you don't think the Hollyoaks or the Reds or anybody drive their cows down the road across that counter, do you?
I think if they could, they would, or vice versa.
I just wondered if that's part of the 20.
And the other problem we finally got it solved is Jim Nyland. I've been bringing up Jim Nyland's right away. We've been fighting over this for years. And so they've come to the conclusion that they will take his fence down because he fenced his right of way off because that's what they told him to do the first time. This was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Now they got a new ranger that came in, decided that was illegal, that he couldn't fence the right. You don't fence a right of way. It's because the people can't get into the Forest Service by using this right of way. So now what they're going to do is take his fence down, leave the gate at the upper end, which just makes no sense to me. I had some pictures a long time ago that I was showing, and they leave the gate up, so the gate's just hanging there. And then they're going to take the fence down that goes to his property, which is only about 150, 200 yards. And then they're going to put little signs that says no trespassing, which to me, I mean, the fence they had put is really a good looking fence. It just doesn't make no sense. But that's what they've decided to do, and they're not going to do anything this year. They'll be doing it next spring sometime. So, and then with Mike Dean being gone now, it will probably happen for sure now. So, with the new people running it. So that finally takes care of Jim Nyland. And what the deal is, Jim Nyland has to pay for that right of way. He had to pay for it to get it, and then he has to pay so much a year for that right of way. And now his right of way actually means nothing other than he can come off of his property and open his own gate and get out, but yet so can other people. It just makes no sense to me how they did it, because the fence it's really a nice looking little deal, but somebody must have went in there and complained that they couldn't. There's that 200 yards or whatever it is Forest Service, and they can't get on it. It's a highly successful elk hunting area right there, so that's what's causing it all.
Now you know why you're there.
Yeah. Well, I could be there all the time with Jim, but Jim uses it quite a bit. He's got a bunch of people from Michigan that actually come and hunt from his cabins and stuff, and then he does take people in sometimes. And the road was mainly built. He built a road from his house. I'll just explain why it's there, all the way up through his property to the northwest corner of his property. And then it's only about, like I said, 200 yards to the main road, so he could actually come from his house and come up the new road that they put in. In fact, I helped him do that too, put in the road from up through into the right-of-way area. And then I've been working with him for, like I said, all this time, getting the right-of-way done and stuff like that. So it's so he can have another access if something happened. He just for funsies, he claims, the Hollyoaks are fighting all the time and they might shut him off so he can't get out, so he can always get out that way. So that's where that comes from. We're working on water, sewer, and the roads in San Juan County, Spanish Valley, our favorite area. The LaSalle mine is still open. They haven't shut them down yet. That they're not moving or selling anything. They're just waiting for the price to get up. But they've still got a crew there because my brother-in-law works there, and I get that information
What
from
are they
him.
mining for?
Huh?
What are they mining for?
Vanadium.
Oh,
It's
vanadium.
for the vanadium starting to make a little move. They're using it for different things. So it's actually, instead of uranium, it's actually vanadium and so they're kind of stockpiling it. And theoretically, Trump was supposed to sign a paper that would made a deal with, I think, China, so the price would start going up, but he hadn't done that yet. So they're all kind of sitting on, get ready, get set, go. So they got a lot to ship once it breaks. So, and LaSalle Mine Company is actually owned by your people down here with the mill. I can't remember their name right now off the bat.
White Mesa Mill?
Yeah, it's actually owned by them. The copper mine is working to expand, and so they're working to, this is BLM stuff also, but they're working to expand their copper mine, and they're, you know, they're kind of in right now. Copper is so low, so they're kind of doing some exploration and stuff. And BLM's working with them on that. We still have the Wilson Arch is still out there. The comment period is over with. It looks like it will be approved, so they should be. I don't know what their time schedule is. It was kind of hard meeting with some of the BLM people due to holidays, so my BLM meetings was a little low. This information is like 2 weeks old, because I didn't get anything this week because they were all scheduled elsewhere, so to put it. And so, but the Wilson Arch is out there, and our drill Genesee, I guess, which is the industrial site. They're looking at re-drilling a plugged old drill site, and they're working with the BLM to be able to do that. But the BLM is kind of hesitant on this, and they don't really know if it's going to take place, but it is out there. They put in for an APD on this old drill site that's been plugged off. And the industrial site is, you know, where the old gas plant was, where they used to flare all the time. So this genocide has taken over that, and so we had a bunch of wells out there, but they've all kind of went away, and so we had 3 other wells that was going to be drilled out there, but they're no longer on the paper. So at this particular time, the BLM is also working on a plan that when you buy a oil or a gas lease, it doesn't last forever. You're going to have a time limit on it to drill it, instead of like the Wilson Arch. How come they're doing that? Because it was like it was picked up in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Nothing was ever done to it, and so they're trying to clean all that up. And so once they do that, then they will have their new ruling, so to speak, in place by that time, and there'll be a time limit. Like potash right now, they'll probably be changing that, because if you have a potash lease, the potash lease can go forever without anything happening to it, and it just takes up property space, so you can't do anything. Grand County ran into this. They were going to put a gun range out by the old airport, out by the airport, the new airport, out by the microwave station. Mm-hmm. And when they went to do all the paperwork and everything, the Normans had potash leases out there that affected the gun range, and they'd had them forever, and you can keep potash forever. So that kind of killed the gun range thing, and that's kind of what it does. Certain things you want to do because they can keep it for so long. Okay, LaSalle mine, copper mine. That's all, other than Benny's working his little butt off on trying to get water and sewer. Oh, I got your little programs here, your little graphs that you guys love so much. At least I get them in color. That's Ken's Lake, Willie. It's froze over, so you can't fish it anymore. So you're out of luck. But there is big fish in there, Willie. I'm telling you, there's some big fish. Yeah, I'm telling you, there's some big fish. You come down. You come down one time, and I'll show you.
Willie doesn't like carp.
These are not carp. These are actually, they're what they are is browns that come out of up in Mill
Can you
Creek.
put it in writing? All your
The reports?
Yeah. So you can read it?
yeah.
Well, I'm computer illiterate, Willie.
It doesn't
And now you
matter.
want me to write it in longhand? I
Yeah,
can do
you
that.
Have 2 weeks.
Yeah.
To the next meeting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then I wouldn't have to come if I wrote it and sent it, would
Yeah.
I? Then you wouldn't have to see my smiley little face. Would your brother hear me talk, or would your
That's
brother read?
Opinion.
Now, Willie.
All right. I
But
would
that's it.
appreciate that.
Okay. I can put it in writing. I just never ever. I just thought I was such a nice, sweet talker that I could just talk, and get it over with.
Well, you probably are, but my retention is so limited.
Well, then all you do is call me on my cell, and I can pick you up at some speed in no time. I can answer any question you want. When you come to Moab, you give me a call, and I'll take you to one of the best restaurants in town, or whatever you need.
Report to you over a cup of coffee, huh?
Yeah, and I can tell you anything you need to know. If you buy.
You gotta buy. Okay, Jerry.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Nick.
Hey, can we go to LG Thursday?
Yeah.
I'll be there at 11:30.
Okay.
I've got,
You got a packet?
nope,
I'll have them. Well, they don't have packs anymore. They have the little tablets. Okay. I'll
I've
have
got-
I'll
I've
have
got,
Lorraine make me my paper package.
USIP membership meeting that day in Salt Lake.
Okay.
Are you going to that, Mac?
No.
USIP membership?
Thank
I know
you.
Willie said he couldn't make it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't. So I have another prior appointment.
There's the county partnership meeting that's here in Grand with all of the partners.
That's fine, I'll be there, right?
So yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, Nick. You're up next.
Good. Good morning.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning.
At the last commission meeting, I asked you to consider some locations you'd like to have the Forest Service come down into the county and present their scoping plan for the forest planning effort. They've asked us for some ideas as to where we think those meetings would be useful to get county residents to attend, to get some input. And I don't know if you've had a chance to give that much thought yet or not.
You know, I've been thinking about the first location, you were talking about 3 different locations, right?
We didn't have any set number.
Yeah,
We,
well, I was thinking maybe do sort of like a public hearing type of a thing here. There'll be one of the first ones, and then one in Blinding, and maybe one down in Bluff. And then gather all the recommendations and see where we end up with that.
yeah, I'm not sure, I don't think it would be a hearing type meeting, but and I haven't heard how they're going to conduct it, whether it's an open house where you just walk around and look at displays and talk to an individual, or if they might have an opening statement or some overviews that they'll present. I'm not sure how they do it. Since I think it'll probably be I'm guessing a couple of hours they'd have at each location so that people could come in when they're available. So it may not be a regular presentation at a specific time. But if you think those 3 locations would be good for the
Well, you
county
know,
representation, we'll,
I think the more input that we get, that will kind of give us an idea of what we need to.
that doesn't put any location on the reservation.
no.
No,
If
it
we have it
doesn't.
in those 3 places. I think you either have one in Mossa or Landing, and that takes care of this area up here, but I think you need one on the reservation someplace.
Down at a chapter or something.
Either one of the chapters at Anna or Mexican Water or El Jado or Red Mesa, someplace down there.
Well,
Seems to me like-
that was my next question, because I think Anna would be very interested in it, and then Red Mesa and El Jado too. But the main one would be probably at the hideout here, and then the one at the college in Blinding, and then just utilize the chapters on the reservation to see where everybody's at. That's what I was thinking. I don't know about the other commissioners.
I think we still got some time to consider that also, but what I'm hearing this morning is Monticello as well as Blanding, and that's questionable,
Yeah,
whether that's duplication.
I think
of
that's
that
only 22
core.
miles apart. I almost think it'd be better to have 2 on the reservation, maybe one at Toledo that kind of takes care of that side, and then one at Aneth or Red Mesa or something like that.
That'd be fine.
And I
So
don't
we-
really care if you have one in Monticello or Blanding. Jeremy probably does, but it doesn't matter to me either way. Just as long as it's one or the other.
central part of the county. And would you still want to have, let's say we have one at Anathan, one at Old, or they have one at Anathan, one at Old Jado. Would you also want the one at Bluff? If you got those two locations.
I still think that the folks there should make some input as well. And because White Mesa might want to come down.
Okay.
And if we could get it on San Juan Records and whatever media we can to advertise that we'll be there with the, with them folks, and I think there's going to be some interest.
Yeah, because the Forest Service is, a lot of their meetings, it's a complicated process, difficult to understand for anybody, and especially just a citizen is hit cold with it, so to speak, to come up with something. And the Forest Service would, and I'll make sure they are going to advertise that, because they generally do, but I'll emphasize that with them.
Well, run with that and see what happens.
So what I'm hearing this morning is either Monticello or ending, and then Bluff, and then Aneth and Old Jado.
Mhm.
And at Aneth and Old Jado, would those meetings be at the chapter houses?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll present that to them. I've got
Veto probably be at the Visitor Center, not at the chapter house.
Old Jado Visitor Center. Okay. I'll give that information to the Forest Service. They are having an interdisciplinary team meeting on their plan this Thursday up in Price, and cooperating agencies have been invited, so I'll have to attend that. I'll bring this up at that meeting.
What day is it, Nick?
Thursday of this week. In the Lisbon Valley copper mine plan for expansion, and that's something that's been proposed for over a year. We made comments as a county about last November on the environmental assessment that was out at that time. And I don't know if much progress has been made since that time, or really what all the holdups, so to speak, might be. So the Lisbon Valley Mining Company is taking it on their initiative to have a public open house this Thursday at 6 p.m. here at the Discovery Center. And I believe that's where they're going to make some presentations or let the public know what they're planning on this expansion and try to get some public input before the next phase of the Environmental Policy Act kicks in. So that's this Thursday evening at 6, and I'll try to attend that also.
Good.
I've got, this is actually an action item on the commission agenda, is the comments on the Gunnison Sagegrass Recovery Plan. And I don't know if you want to kick that around a little bit in this work meeting, or just wait until the commission meeting.
What do you guys think?
Give us a little briefing.
Well, I told Nick, I didn't think the commission should support a recovery plan that supports transplant or relocation of birds from out of the area into San Juan County. I mean, it's just like bringing the lamb to the slaughter when you bring them to San Juan County. There's so many predators, such harsh conditions. They're not going to survive, and in my opinion, it's a false narrative anyway to think you can transplant those birds and they're going to increase the population, because within a year or two they'll be dead. And I think I don't support it personally as a landowner, as cattleman, anything like that. I think they made a big mistake when they tried to decide that they could go out and have all these unoccupied areas as protection areas for Gunnison sage grouse when there's no Gunnison sage grouse there. You know, so to try and bring them in and transplant them in and make it look like there's sage grouse out there, so we need to have all this protections on the private property, and that's where all of this protection lies, is on people's private property. And then the federal fish and wildlife people come in and put all these restrictions on what you can do on your private land because of the birds that aren't there.
They're transporting in.
So I would encourage the commission to support a letter that says no transplants.
We,
What,
transplants,
what's
I could give you a little
the
overview.
benefit? What's the benefit of transplanting birds
Okay, let
when
me,
there was not
Yeah.
any to start with?
transplanting is one aspect of their recovery plan. And they do say they don't want to transplant until the habitat is improved enough to support the birds. The exception to that would be if they think the birds are completely going to vanish in this satellite population, they would kick out a few birds to kind of hold the fire warm, so to speak, keep some birds in the area. And of course, the ultimate goal is that the habitat would support a viable population of Gunnison sage grouse. So transplanting is one aspect. The habitat improvements is the other part of it. But our comment in the letter is that, well, first of all, we state that we have a serious concern that the species can recover at all in this population because of the limited habitat. Because it is 96% of that habitat is private land. Private landowner can do anything they choose to do on that unless it's tempered by regulation or this threatened status of the Gunnison sage grouse. So this habitat, that was historic habitat, it was sagebrush range land. And that was, of course, with the Homestead Act and other things that came about, particularly after World War I, individuals found, or it was determined, that dryland farming would be successful in this area. So there were homestead entries made and land was cleared. And in clearing the land for crop production, you remove the sagebrush, as well as pinyon and juniper and other vegetation that's there. So you could say the habitat has been lost because of the private landowners' initiative to conduct a business opportunity there. That being said, though, the Conservation Reserve Program came about in 1986, and that's where a landowner could put his land into non-crop production and maintain a ground cover that would protect the soil, improve water quality, improve maybe wildlife habitat. So a lot of these lands that were cleared for farming, if the landowner chose to not produce, say, wheat, which had been common practice, they could put this land in the Conservation Reserve Program, the CRP. So some of these lands have been in that program for 30 years. And in some cases, sagebrush has reestablished itself or started to recover. There's been some plantings of grass, browse, and forb species for ground cover that also good sagebrush or sage grouse habitat. So this has been in effect for 30 years. But yet, even though the lands have been recovering to some extent and some certain percentage that's CRP lands, the sage grouse population has continued to decline. And in particular, for the last 4 years, that they use a count on the lek, the strutting ground, to count the males every year. For the last 4 years, those male counts have been declining. They were in the single digits, like 9, and then 7, and then 4 or 3 or whatever, the latest count. So we suspect that next year, maybe it's going to be 0. The birds are going out of the picture. And
Nick, tell them how many they count in Gunnison County, Colorado. How many
Oh, I
males do
think
they
that,
count?
I don't remember the male count, but the estimated population is 4,000 or more. Gunnison County, Colorado, is more of a, what's termed, I guess, a mesic habitat, or more moderate moisture availability.
More
if you've-
wetlands.
in more wetlands. And if you've been to Gunnison, Colorado, you've seen that, where the sagebrush covered mountain slopes and little valleys with meadows, wet meadows, with all the water that's over there. That's good for sage grouse chick production and cover in the winter. But here in San Juan County, we're more of a much more drier habitat. So one of their actions is to increase those wet areas in the county, or in the habitat area. But with the most recent years of drought and possibly climate change, I'm not sure how practical that's going to be. Plus, nearly all of the efforts that could have been done to improve the habitat have been done in the past 30 years. And even with those improvements, population continues to decline. But yet, San Juan County would be saddled with a high male count target. This is an average of 31 males. This is over a 3-year, I think a 3-year average during at least a 7-year period.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at that 31, when last year there were 4. Does that seem possible that we're going to be able to recover to that number? So there's a lot of questions there. So that's what this recovery plan has, is to improve habitat. A lot of it's already been done. Improve the wetlands, which is a kind of a natural situation anyway. How do you get that out of a dry environment? Plus to transplant birds just to keep the species from going extinct in this area. This is not the only area in the United States where the Gunnison sage grouse occurs. It's mostly in Colorado. And the target of the home concentration area is Gunnison County, Gunnison, Colorado, with that wet, much better habitat. And as I say here, this habitat is different, much different than the other areas, because most of those areas are public lands, either BLM Forest Service
Do
or
you have
Park
the letter
Service.
ready?
Pardon me?
Do you have the letter ready?
I do.
So,
Well,
so
yeah.
also, Kenneth and Willie, there are satellite communities. San Juan County is a satellite
Yes,
community
yeah,
for
yeah.
the birds. The core communities in Gunnison, Colorado. Dove Creek is a satellite community. Do they have any males? They count any
They do
males?
not. The Dove Creek and Monticello are considered one population, but they're subsets, Dove Creek and Monticello. Dove
So-
Creek is similar to Monticello, maybe more farming over there. They have no birds.
So we're tying up 60,000 acres of private
It's
property.
146,000 acres of the critical habitat.
Okay, 146,000 acres for 9 birds that might not be there next
Well,
year.
4
For
or
4
less
birds.
males.
And
The,
I think that Federal Fish and Wildlife ought to concentrate on Gunnison County and some of those counties that have high bird counts. Now, if they insist on transplanting, why don't they transplant the birds on the BLM instead of on private property?
I guess they
They
could.
have been doing that when I was on the state advisory committee. They had sage grouse all the way in the Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado.
Well, you're talking about
And that-
sage, greater sage grouse. This is a different species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Gunnison.
Well, I think that's the reason why I asked if there's a letter that's ready. You know, we're all here for protection and trying to do what we can. But on the other hand, if these particular species were never there, then it doesn't make any sense trying to develop something just to encroach on the livelihood of our communities within the area. So, listening to what you're giving us and thinking about this, it really doesn't make any sense to try to. It's just like us trying to do something in the Spanish Valley, whether we want it or not. We got to have this. So to me, I don't think so. So I think the letter should be drafted, and I would like to have the 2 commissioners read it if they're comfortable with that. I'm willing to sign the letter to state to the Forestry Service.
Mhm.
Maybe they can find other areas where these species can continue to live, and that would make much sense than trying to develop something where these particular species might not even survive.
This is the same letter that was in your packets from last week, if you've had a chance to look at
So-
it.
The purpose, the bottom line. What?
Is to recover species
Yeah.
so that it is
Well,
in this
that
area.
I understand. What's the bottom line?
I guess that is a
It's
bottom.
whether the
That-
county supports,
Recovery, transplant and recovery, that's it. How, who, what? Who's involved? Other than the land?
Federal Fish and Wildlife,
Mm-hmm.
they oversee
It's-
the bird.
The Gunnison sage-grouse is a threatened species. It's not endangered, it's threatened. Now, the greater sage-grouse, which you may have had experience on the wildlife
Right.
board, that's not
The same
a
bird?
threatened species. It's not the same bird. This one is a little bit different in that the greater sage-grouse has a much wider distribution through the western United States. This is
Applies, yeah.
southeastern
Okay.
Utah and
What's the
Colorado.
value?
What's the value of any species in the world? I don't know, Willie. That's a
If
question.
it's
Everybody's
edible,
going to have a
yes,
different answer.
I would support it.
No,
If not,
They're too sour, Willie.
yeah, it's just like a snake, yeah.
Yeah.
tastes a lot like baldy.
So anyway, there's the
Willie,
letter.
the other thing-
We have some birds out in Navajo Mountain. It's a game bird, which is good. Yeah.
The other thing that the
Put 'em in
Federal
the
Fish
pen.
and Wildlife hasn't done is to me, adequately addressed the predation on these birds.
Yeah,
You know, there's coyotes, there's
yeah.
does, there's
If that's the purpose
foxes,
of
there's everything.
fattening the fox or coyote,
They've got
much.
they've got that as one of the action items that they would look into predation and determine whether
If
efforts would
those
be
are
effective.
determined, then I would consider it, but not.
Well,
at this time.
the Gunnison sage grouse are increasing in Gunnison, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing well. They're increasing. They're thriving. Dove Creek, Monticello, and some of these outlier satellite communities, they're not. But by supporting their efforts in this plan, you're tying up 146,000 acres of private property with various
Yes.
restrictions on it, aren't you, Nick?
You are.
Yes.
And this recovery plan is not a regulatory document, it's a guideline. The regulatory document is the law, the Endangered Species Act, in which the bird was classified as threatened. So this recovery plan won't change any of that. We're still gonna have that, but we may be able to get some more consideration for landowners or whatever it might be. Dove Creek doesn't have a high male count target because they have no birds.
Right.
Now, maybe it's more appropriate if we're gonna have to have something, maybe Monticello should have that habitat, that acreage target for breeding habitat or quality habitat, rather than a number of birds.
That's, basing it on birds is, population is the wrong
Yeah.
approach, I think.
Well, thank you very much,
So
sir, Nick.
I'll leave that letter with you for consideration during the commission meeting. I've got one other item. And Mac, I didn't have a chance to talk with you about this earlier because it just happened this morning. But I spoke with a representative of the Backcountry Pilots Association. And I don't know if you've heard from Steve Durchie within the last few days.
I had not yet.
That's who I spoke with, and he's the individual, or that's the group that's interested in getting maintenance on the Dark Canyon South airstrip that I brought up in an earlier commission meeting. And BLM is processing it right away to be issued to the Backcountry Pilots Association to use that airstrip, dirt airstrip, for recreational use of backcountry aircraft, landing and taking off and camping in the area. I did hear, and I know Mr. Dirty had asked to be on this commission meeting this morning, but for some reason he declined that at this time. But he told me this morning that Backcountry Pilots Association may be interested in contracting with San Juan County to do the dirt work on that airstrip. And I told him our concerns, that the commission had not agreed to any of that yet. But it's a possibility, I suppose, so long as the county would not be held liable for any accidents that might occur on that airstrip for aircraft use. And so long as that right-of-way would not interfere with the use of the county Class B road that runs alongside it. Now, BLM has it in their action to offset that airstrip by at least 10 feet from the county B road, so that the airstrip use would not interfere with vehicle use on the county road, which it doesn't get much use anyway because it's so remote, but it's still a county road. So the backcountry pilots may be contacting the county in the future to see if the county is interested in entering into a contract to be reimbursed for dirt work on that airstrip. So I just bring that to your attention so you know that it's a possibility that might be coming up. And that's all I have this morning for you.
Good, thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
I think in order to do that, we need to consult with Benny and see if the road department would be interested in taking that on before the county would make any kind of a decision like that. Anyway,
Yes,
just my thought.
and he'll probably be contacting Benny as the first contact on that.
Okay,
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
thanks.
Well, item number 4, but I think it's something that we need to
No,
consider
we'll
for
table
the.
that dishwasher discussion. Monty, he's out at a weed meeting up in Provo right now, so he
I
he
think
tried
we
to get
should-
that off. But
I think we
nobody's
should
noticed.
take it into consideration and just see if he has enough in his budget. If not, then
So he'll
how
have
do
enough
we?
in his budget to take care of that. It's just getting the approval from you guys to do so.
Okay.
And so we'll make sure, if it's something you're
What's the
still
amount?
willing, we'll just go.
Does he have to have commission approval on a purchase, or is it under the approval amount?
A dishwasher should be under, I think it's just more procedural
Yeah.
than anything else. And so we can
I
make
thought
sure
we
he gets
set a
the 3
limit
quotes.
that they could purchase up to a certain amount without having to clear it with the commission.
There's nothing in purchasing policy that has a limit on there. You may have set something
Well, I
verbally,
think
but
there
I don't
is.
have anything
I
on there.
thought we did.
There is.
I
That
think
was a
there
discussion
is.
earlier
Is there?
today, yes.
Yeah, because I haven't seen anything on there. So if it's been done, that'd be good to know. But I can check with Monty if you're okay with him proceeding, and I can send you guys an email. On that,
Well,
just
let's
to go
let's
through there.
take an action on it, and if not, then we can just go ahead
Provisional.
and scratch it. If not, pass it and run with it, because I
Okay.
sure hate for them dirty laundries to be building up while we're waiting on it.
Yeah, yeah.
You got 45 minutes, Kendall, if you have anything to entertain us.
I don't
Here's-
sing and I
here's
don't
the table.
dance.
Well,
so.
we have the table.
I have one thing,
Sure.
if I,
You can come up. That's
Yeah, come on
I
up.
have a question that came up this morning,
As long as it's not too controversial, then you're good.
and I wanted input from maybe Bruce and Kendall and anybody that has some history. I got a call this morning from the San Juan Mortuary. They have a unclaimed body, and they were wondering how to handle that. I'm not sure that they've dealt with that very much in the past.
So the reason they called you is because they started with calling us.
Okay.
And we said that they needed to probably involve the health department as well. So just so that the commission is aware, this is the first time that I've dealt with it in the 5 years that I've been the county attorney. But state law requires that if there is an unclaimed body, someone is found deceased or dies in San Juan County that is unclaimed, meaning they can't find next of kin, they can't find, there's nobody to take care of that body.
But they know who it is?
but they do know who it is, yeah,
Okay.
the person has lived here for a while,
Yeah.
they just can't find any next of kin. And so there's a process that has to be gone through, but if in fact that person the deceased is considered an unclaimed body, then the county is required to pay for the, cremation or interment of that body. So that's something that we're working on. But that's something that the commission, should be aware of.
Yeah, I just thought we should be aware and maybe,
I know the mortuary was working on, their plan initially was to go the cremation route simply because it's faster, it's more cost efficient, and so that's the route that they were going to go. And we'll just keep you updated. But it is in state law, it's pretty clear that an unclaimed body is the responsibility. And the reason we had them call your office is it's in the health code.
yeah,
Is
it is
where-
in the
is where
health
that's
code.
found, so-
And I think in Salt Lake, it had previously been handled by a separate agency, but I think now the health department handles all of those indigent burials or indigent body disposals. But it is something I thought everyone should just be aware of. I'm not sure we've had to deal with it much in the past, and hopefully we don't have to deal with it much in the future, but I wanted to just make sure that we were all on the same page and that I wasn't missing
I
something.
don't think we ever dealt with anything like that before. John Doe or Jane Doe?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
Jane Doe.
Jane Doe?
Oh. Wow.
Well, I hope that was entertaining enough.
You tried, Kurt.
We could maybe bring it up. I don't know if we'll need any official action, but I guess it's kind of something we haven't really had to deal with before, so maybe we should touch base and see what we feel like is the most appropriate.
So I will tell you, just so everybody's aware as well, that what we told the mortuary is that they needed to make a request in writing that says what they've done to try to identify next of kin and family and lay that out in writing so that then they could present it to us so that, if 5 years from now a family member comes and says, what have you done, where's my family member? We can say, hey, this is what was done by the mortuary, and then state law required us to.
What nationality was it?
I believe, I don't know, but based on what I do know, I would say non-native, probably Caucasian. The name was a somewhat familiar name to me, but not really. Like somewhere in the back of my mind, the name was familiar, but my recollection is that it's a Caucasian.
Well, there, now you're all up to speed, now I know as much as.
Well, let us
Ken
know,
knows.
whatever you figure out.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll need to have any action from this body on a process, but I think we'll just need to come up with a process and something that Kendall feels comfortable with and
I don't know
you
where
guys
the-
feel
And
comfortable
I don't know
with.
where the money comes from. I don't know. The one thing that we thought would be to maybe contact Salt Lake, because I know Salt Lake County has dealt with it a lot with their homeless
Homeless
population.
populations.
So that's probably where we would lean towards, is to find out what they do and how they process that sort of a thing, because this is a first to my knowledge.
Okay, that's all I have a question on, so I thought I'd ask this morning. Thanks, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Kenneth, I'd suggest that we're at the end of our work meeting, that we consider going into executive session if Kendall needs to.
That's what I was
Yeah, we could knock out
referring to. He doesn't want to dance.
Number 6. Well, we can knock number 6. I think is what Bruce is saying, Judge,
Yeah.
or, Commissioner, on the commission meeting, because it is something that we could do at this point.
Yeah, we could do that.
Maybe speed up the process in the commission meeting and make use of
Yeah.
the next little bit of time.
Maybe take care of the washing machine at the same time, huh?
And that is not mine. not mine.
Procedural, can you do that? Do you have to be in an open meeting to be able to do that?
We're in an open.
In a work session meeting, and so.
The call for a work session
Still
has
make
to
a
be
motion,
coming out
so
of
they'd have to make
the
a
meeting.
motion.
You have
Yeah.
to make they'd have to make a motion to go into a closed meeting.
We can't exercise a motioning position without calling the meeting to order, and we're allowed to call the meeting to order at 11 o'clock. So therefore, it's on you can just come up and ask for executive session under the open what do you call those, the open sunshine law, or that way we can get into it, just recommend it.
So this is an open meeting. You're not taking a motion, you're not doing an action item, you're simply going into a closed meeting.
That's,
And you
that's
could-
what you need to do, yes.
but-
Then we listen.
But it's up to the commission to close the meeting in order for the room to be.
We will recognize, all you need to do is come up here and recommend a request for executive session, and then the commissioner acknowledges it. Then you bring us into it to where we exercise our position.
Commissioner, since we have time before the next meeting, I think we could make use of it by going into a closed meeting. It's on the agenda, but for the commission meeting, but we can handle it here if the commission would like to go into a closed meeting.
As elected commissioner, I recognize a closed meeting since we haven't adopted our agenda yet. So we do have time to get to our meeting, so a closed meeting is recommended, and I would acknowledge the two commissioners to acknowledge that as well.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, do you have anybody you recommend to stay, or?
I think if the commissioners and Mac.
Okay, folks, a close, so please, let us take care of the closed session.
Goodbye, David.
Thanks.
Go grab your soda.
Just want to clarify.
I appreciate that.
They told me last time they left the microphones on. In an
Everybody was
executive
listening on
section.
the hall.
Everyone's knocking on the door.
All your fault.
Sunday's making sure that the live stream is off, so we'll wait until he gives us the thumbs up that is